thank you so much for coming. We're so excited about this creative and careers event as part of Lasta Festival, which is part of the larger 10 days of brightening air. My name is Emer Tyrrell. I'm from Backstage Theatre. Emily White, who's from Town Hall in Galway. And I would also like to give a special mention to Douglas Redden from the Glore venue in Ennis as well, without whom we couldn't have done this event. We're going to get started right away, but firstly I might just go around the room and introduce a few people that you're going to hear more from later on. So we're so delighted and excited to have theatre designer Jamie Vartan, to have RT's Northeast correspondent Sinead Hussey, to have photographer Ruth Medjber, to have Mark Logan, who's a filmmaker and co-founder of the Collective Films, and to have production manager and programme coordinator Molly McAvoy. And without further ado, I might hand back to Emily to ask the first question.
Just to start us off with kind of a little icebreaker question is, what did you want to do / what were you planning to do, if you can cast your minds back to your final year of secondary school at around that point in your life. So what were you planning to do then? Just a couple of words on that. So I might go to Ruth first.
Yeah, do you know what? Photography is the only thing I've ever wanted to do. It was the only thing on my CAO application form. And I specialize in music. But oddly enough, I didn't do music or art in school because the classes were full. So I was at a severe disadvantage. I didn't know what a portfolio was supposed to look like and I had no one to ask. So I went to my careers guidance teacher and she was completely clueless. So I did a lot of self-started research, and also my careers guidance teacher gave me the wrong date of application for the degree course, because back then there was only 2 degrees to do in Ireland, one in DIT and one in Dún Laoghaire. So I wanted to apply to both of them, but I'd missed Dún Laoghaire date. And then the only date left was DIT, and I had 24 hours to knock together a portfolio. So it wasn't a great experience, but it was the only thing I wanted to do. So I did it. And luckily enough, I got in. But yeah, photography is the only thing I've ever done, apart from all the part-time jobs that got me through college and got me through starting this whole experience. But it's been the only career. I was very lucky, and I understand that there's a lot of people that don't have that kind of drive, or not drive, they don't have that kind of clarity when they're 16, 17 years of age. But I was just so determined, and maybe the better word is stubborn, that I just went for it. So yeah.
Cool. Thanks very much. We'll go to Jamie next, if that's all right.
Hi everyone. Thinking way back to when I was thinking what I was going to do it in secondary, I actually was wanting to be a fine artist, and I was well into painting and drawing, and even from an even younger age, I was always been drawing and painting, and so that was it, absolutely 100%. That's what I was going to do, and I then went to a fine art degree course, and kept going with it, absolutely 100%. That's what I was going to do, even my parents didn't stop me. I was hoping my parents would stop me, but they kept saying, yeah, go for it. I think, all right, I wasn't expecting that, but anyway, so I just kept going for it until I felt completely it wasn't for me, because I realized that I was just given a studio on my own, completely in isolation almost. And I realized that I love collaborating with people, and it wasn't for me. I think there's a later question as to what happened next, but certainly it's a lesson for me looking back, and lesson for everybody really, that even at that age, yeah, you can kind of, I mean, it's not a huge swerve. It's the arts, and it's I've been influenced by even those few years of doing something else with my work. So. But yeah, it was mainly thinking ahead to what my life would be like on my own in a studio for the rest of my life. It's like, no. So yeah, I had a tiny little meltdown, and then teamed up with everybody else, which is brilliant.
It all worked out okay in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go to Mark next.
Yeah, I wanted to play football professionally for like the first 22 years of my life, and kind of then did that and realized that I was kind of sacrificing like 100% of the pie chart of what I enjoyed for like 20%. And when I looked around the dressing room, I saw men who were, 20 years older than me, 15 years older than me, who loved football and like lived it. And, it was an amazing experience. I played in the Europa League. I was in FIFA. I was in a video game. I was like playing week in, week out for St. Patrick's Athletic, and it was great. But at the same time, I felt like a piece of me inside was being like neglected, like inner child, whatever you want to call it. I felt like I was going to identify with football and football only for the next 20 years if it was a career that I was going to do. So I left. 22, I stopped playing, and I kind of moved into the kind of creative industry, I suppose. But really, I was just I was working in like a kind of creative agency in Dublin on music, Heineken Live Music specifically, as like an account manager there. And very quickly also got depressed doing that and felt like a cog in a wheel of kind of selling beer through live music experiences, and it didn't nourish me. The whole agency model didn't really suit me. So I moved to Los Angeles, where I knew absolutely nobody. And I wanted to see, I suppose, if where I had gotten to in my life was based on privilege and birth lottery, or whether it was actually based on the content of my character and who I was. And over there, I got involved in a whole host of different things, from, underground raves to festivals to filmmaking. And I studied business in DCU, but really it was just my mom being like, this is probably a good thing for you to do, son, get the foundation. I did that on a sports scholarship, but I was really just trying to play football. And then later ended up, in film. And that's kind of what I've been doing the last 4 years. But initially it was just football. But it's interesting, I think when I look back now, that kind of athlete mentality of like discipline and communication and teamwork, they really stand to me now. And I think I approach my craft for now, this craft that I'm in for now, with a lot of similar mindsets and kind of skill to football. Like they're all transferable. But that was kind of my road into what I'm doing now, I suppose.
Oh, thank you. Head over to Sinead now.
Yeah, a bit like Ruth, I think I always wanted to be a journalist, but I did my Leaving Cert at 16, which is quite young. And I think I was a little bit unsure myself. I knew it was a hard industry to get into. So I said, you know what, I'll do an arts degree and who knows what might happen. So I did Spanish and economics, and I think halfway through the course, I had this idea that I'll move to Madrid and I'll work in a bank and everything will be lovely. But along the way, actually, bizarrely, I'm just thinking I may have reported on Mark playing, because I started reporting on League of Ireland matches, and I used to traipse around the country for £25, euro, I'm not sure, reporting on matches following Longford Town when they were in the Premier League and when they got promoted. So I started kind of getting a feel for it then. And then when I came to the end of my arts degree, I knew this is definitely it. And it was only years later when I actually went back and looked at a diary from school. One of my teachers has written in it, best of luck, Sinead, please remember me when you're a famous journalist on TV. And I was like, wow, it was like, now I'm not sure about the famous part, but like she was able to predict, she could see something in me that I didn't even know was there. So I just, from there, then I did a postgrad in radio and television, and that's really it.
Brilliant, thank you. I would say famous personally. And lastly, we'll go over to Molly.
Sure. So for me, I always knew it was going to be something within the creative industry, something artistic, something creative, but in the backstage kind of area. So always knew I wanted to work in production. So for that sake, I primarily had film courses on my CAO, both at home here in Ireland and also in London. But my top spot was always drama and theatre at Trinity, and that's what I ended up doing and going on to pursue. So yeah, drama and theatre was the perfect mix of a practical course of being able to learn the theory of it all, but being able to do all of the backstage and the design work that I wanted to do. So it was a nice mix of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And I might actually go back to Jamie and Ruth a little bit there, just to hear kind of the full journey of how you got from that original point, I suppose, to where you are now. Thank you so much for those that have shared it there. I might go to Jamie first.
Sure, yes. I was in my studio on my fine art course, and we all went out one evening to a bar. It sounds cliche, but this is what happened. And this was down in Brighton, by the way, on the south coast of England. And there was a group of, I was at one table with all the other fine artists, all very, very intense. Nothing against any of them, but anyway, it was all very an intense evening. And across the other side of the room, there was a whole bunch of people I recognized from the college having a great time. And I sort of shifted over to that table and asked them what they were up to. They said they were putting on a theatre production. And they were part of a course called the Expressive Arts course at the same place. And I got well interested in it. Something, a little light bulb clicked. And I said, well, can I join your, can I sort of join in? And so because I was coming from painting, they said, oh, well, you can help with the design. They also, it was one of those courses where you joined in with everything. You did a bit of acting, you did a bit of everything. So I found myself on stage as well. And I realized I didn't want to be an actor. So that was a good decision to find that out. And then I changed courses and I went to London to study theatre design. So I actually started off again, even after doing a year of fine art, I then started again and I started doing specifically theatre design. So it was really literally just meeting a bunch of people that was the spark for me. And it just so happened that the tutor who interviewed me for the theatre design course was also a painter as well. So there was a link there with my background, because I was certainly not from a theatrical background at all, and it wasn't my in as such. I wasn't coming from a sort of very dramatic background. So and I was a bit scared of all these other theatre types that I was meeting. That had nothing to do with. So I felt at home on that particular course, and then graduated from there. But going very fast forward here, but I basically, if you want to come right up to date, basically, I met a lot of people in London. I have to say that was an advantage from all different places. And one of them brought me over to the Abbey Theatre. I did some shows at the Abbey Theatre. Before all that, I was working in a lot of fringe theatre, and I was also like painting nightclubs, and I was also doing outdoor events, and I was making props and scene painting. So you mustn't forget all of that. I mean, that was a huge part of my life.
It's of everything.
And I even had a spell doing film design. I was really interested in moving across into film, because I wasn't finding the right sort of collaborators that I was interested in artistically. And I thought, and then I met a fantastic film director. I started doing a couple of little short films. And then I realized that, and even in film, that the script is very hard to find a good screenplay, a good script to go by. Everyone was just jumping on the film bandwagon, but just because it was a film, not because of actually what the script was or what the screenplay was. I moved back into theatre. I had a chance where I actually, one road led to another. A lot also came back to my flatmates in London who were working in different art fields as well. So a lot of my contacts came from my flatmates, I have to say. So I'm working all over the place. Obviously now, less so in pandemic. Let's see what happens. And obviously I'll be in Galway in September, early September, doing a new Enda Walsh show at the Black Box. So there you go.
Really exciting. Yeah, that's so interesting to hear that it's such a kind of a people-based and connection-based kind of journey. I wonder if it was anything similar for you, Ruth.
Yeah, I mean, everyone always asks me that question, how did you get where you are? And I wish there was like some really simple strategy I could tell people, say, oh, you just do this, and then all of a sudden you're on a tour bus living with a bunch of musicians and stopping off at Glastonbury and stuff. And it's like, No, it's like 20 years of hard work and knockbacks, a lot of knockbacks, and a lot of just kind of just keeping going. Like similar to Sinead, I did the Leaving Cert really, really young. And even though I got into my chosen degree, I deferred it for a year and I did 6 months of collage to do, like, because I was only 17 and I felt like I wasn't ready to take on a 4-year degree. So I messed around for 6 months in collage to do, like doing communications. So I got to do television and radio as well as photography. And kind of like what Mark was saying as well, those skills that I learned there, even though they're not directly related to what I'm in at the moment, they do help when I'm like on film sets. I can understand what's going on around me, or when I'm in radio stations photographing musicians who are going in. It's good to have the kind of knowledge. So I mean, so even though I didn't specialize at the start, everything I learned can be applied later on in life. But I was hell bent on being a music photographer. But the degree that I went to do in DIT, they were still kind of finding their feet at the same time, and they were kind of churning out fine art photographers. And I was very much like, no, this is music, this is the industry, this is. So I didn't gel too well in my degree. Actually, I failed every single year. I had to resit my exams every single year without fail. And then even to the end, when I presented my degree show, I failed that too. And I had to contest the results and appeal it. And it got by on appeal. But like, that's hard. That knocks the confidence right out of you when you're 17, 18, 19 and 20. So it took me a good while to get back on my feet. But thankfully, I got a job in Hot Press magazine in my 3rd year of my 4-year degree. And I got that through sheer kind of tenacity and basically bullying the picture editor until he gave me a job. I was relentless. I was like, come on, please give us a job, please give us a job, please give us a job. And he did. And that set me up there to go networking, you know, and that it is very true. Like, networking is a massive part in any creative industry, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, it is, and it'll help you succeed a lot faster and get you more comfortable in your own work if you do have connections. Now, I don't mean like kind of monetary based connections, like, oh, they'll give you this and they'll give you that. It's just kind of like a group of people around you who are doing the similar kind of work, or at least, you know, I've got like a group of freelancer friends who I call to when I'm like, listen, I'm having a problem quoting this job, what would you do? You know, and even though they're not photographers, they're visual artists, illustrators, whatever, it's still nice to have a network of people around you. Because sometimes when you do work in a creative field, it can be very, very lonely and isolating. So you have to kind of set yourself up. So between going from the degree to Hot Press to kind of standing on my own 2 feet as an artist, along that way, I've always had a studio. It used to be like in the corner of a bedsit that I was living in. And then down the line now, it's a studio in Harcourt Street, which I'm very grateful to have. But because I had that space, I was always practicing my work, practicing my craft, no matter who would stand in front of me. I was taking every job that I could possibly get my hands on that would allow me to use my camera. So even at the beginning, I took the most awful jobs that you could imagine. I was sent to photograph 100 chippers in Dublin when I was about 20, and I didn't even drive at the time. So I was getting the bus to all these chippers and pubs for this terrible assignment. And I was getting maybe, I think, like €1 a pub. And I was like, this is amazing. I'll do 100 pubs in a day. Oh, sorry. And I'll get like 100 quid. I recently got a landline and it's the most distracting thing ever. I'm on a Zoom.
We interrupt this program for a brief
I know, ridiculous, right? But yeah, so that's kind of how I got to where I am. It's just, there's no magic formula. You just kind of figure it out as you go, and you try and plan for your next step. You go 1 foot in front of the next, in front of the next. And for me personally, goal lists are what I live by. So I will start out each year or each 6 months by kind of going, what would I like to do? What is my next dream assignment? So, you know, at the moment it's like photograph Antarctica and do a massive spread for The Guardian. And I'll try and work towards that, no matter how unattainable they seem to be. But as long as it's in your head, like a little mood board or a dream vision board or whatever they call that, for me, it's a goal list. So yeah, there's no simple way of doing it, but you just kind of have to keep going when you get knocked back and have to try figure out the next steps. There's no clear path. Normally in a creative industry, you have to be self-motivated, a self-starter, go do it yourself, figure it all out. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, some great, some fantastic insights there. Yeah, so a few of you have touched on the idea of connections, and kind of not purely in like a cynical kind of, you know, utilitarian kind of, you know, these are people who I can use to further myself, but, you know, making you know, significant connections to like better yourself in your career. So I'd be kind of interested to know about any people in your lives who have inspired you to do what you do, be that like mentors or just people who have given you the confidence, or the belief, or even the resources to help you pursue what you do. So anyone can jump in on that if they have something.
I was going to just say my ma. I think, yeah, we always look to these, like, well, I'm not going to speak for we and say I know everyone looks to, but it feels like people often look to like these idols for inspiration. And I think if you look a little bit closer, you'll find that often inspiration comes a lot closer to home. And when I really look at what, let's say, I think I've achieved, or what other people look at as an achievement, I owe so much of it just to my foundation, like as a child, and like literally from 0 to 5, 6, 7, just being told that you're good enough and that you deserve it. And that no matter what you think you can't achieve, or you can achieve, if you think you can and you think you deserve it and you come from the heart, you'll be able to do it. And I think like that's what we're all trying to do here. Like, I think everyone's a chancer. Do you know what I mean? Like, everyone is just figuring it out. We're on an organic spaceship flying in a spiral through time and space in an infinite cosmos. Like, nobody really knows what's going on. And anyone that tells you that they do, or they're either a liar or they're deluded. Nobody knows what's going on. We're all just figuring it out. So if you have a belief in yourself and you work really hard and you think and you dream and you believe you can do something, then you're probably right. And if you don't believe you can do something, then you probably won't. You know, I think it's and again, I'm not trying to come across preachy or like self-helpy here. Like, it's very easy to rattle off these things. It's a very different thing to walk it when you have had knockbacks, like Ruth says, or when you kind of go down a path and you're like, this isn't for me. But I think if you check in with yourself and you feel good in the physical body, emotionally, you feel like this is good. I feel like this is what I can do. And you believe in yourself and you work at it, and it'll probably happen for you. And it'll probably happen in a way that you don't know. Like, it's all good having the plan and the vision, but oftentimes it'll happen in a mad way, where I find often you're made to wait just a little bit longer than you think. Like, you think, oh, I'm going to get it now, and this is going to happen, and then you won't. But then when it does happen, it's like something's laughing at you. It's like, see, you almost gave up, but then you got it. And that's what makes you really appreciate it when it does happen. So yeah, for me, like my ma was just the greatest source of just like dropping me to games and just constantly just telling me that I was good enough. And I feel like that instilled in me at a very young age just a sense of like, we're all good enough, you know, but I believe I can kind of I deserve it. I deserve things that I go for if I work hard enough. And I think we all do. Just some of us, unfortunately, don't have that coding, and they have to recode themselves to believe that they are capable of it, or they have to see some physical, I suppose, manifestation of that so they can believe like, oh, whoa, like I got this. Someone said I was good. And then they start to crave that validation, as opposed to the validation that comes from yourself, which is the ultimate validation when you can actually believe in yourself. So yeah, I'm not sure if that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you say there about setbacks, and I know Ruth touched on it a little bit as well, I think it's really powerful, and it's really wonderful to hear as well, kind of as a young person, because sometimes you look at people who are doing so well and you're like, well, everything must have always gone wonderfully for them, or how would they be here? So I think that's like really great to hear. And I'm wondering if anyone else has had any kind of standout setbacks that maybe were hard at the time, but you're kind of now really grateful that you had, because as Mark was saying there, it makes you really appreciate it then when things do work out.
I think for me, actually, it was that transition where I felt very lost just doing painting and sculpture and installation work, because it was all I was on my own, and I knew something was wrong. And I was it was up to 2021, I think it was. And it was the careers advisor actually who was the person that actually spotted I was in trouble, and suggested that, you know, those people you met the other night, I think maybe you should go with them. You know? Because I didn't know quite how to do it all officially and everything like that, so I was swimming around a bit. I didn't know quite what to do, and I was actually brought up not to. I was thinking, right, you know, I knew my parents didn't like the idea of me changing course from fine art, because you know, I came from this family where you've decided that you don't make a mistake. And that feeling that it's a mistake was inbred in me, that, oh, I can't change, that's I've made a mistake. And that's the wrong thing to be, obviously that's the wrong thing to be thinking, you know. And I learned later that as many layers to your life as possible, it makes you a richer person. And you know, I mean, like what Mark was saying there about, you know, we're all just layer. You know, it's a multi-complex life. Life is just, it can take you anywhere, and every layer counts, basically. You know, just makes you richer. And then also, I was lucky enough with the tutor stroke mentor on the theatre design course. He spotted that I was desperate to come on the course, and he knew that I had motivation behind me, that I'd sort of found a different sort of direction to go in, and he saw that I was swimming around a bit as well. So yeah, I had to thank those people, really. Yeah, and just to learn that thing about everything you learn from everything you do. And when I was painting nightclub ceilings with fluorescent paint, I now know that when I use fluorescent paint on stage in one of my designs, I know the effect that it has. I know what it's like to use it. So you know, doesn't matter what you do, you use that experience.
Yeah, I love that idea of layers as well. I'm wondering if Sinead or Molly, if you've had any similar, and maybe you haven't had any kind of standout setbacks or.
Yeah, like I don't know whether I call them setbacks, but definitely challenges that, like, I've had to kind of, you know, sit down and have a little chat with my head sometimes, you know. Like going back to the very start, like I've really struggled with confidence, because, you know, when I was going to like football matches, I'd walk in and like the press box would just be men predominantly, and here I was, like a young 16, 17-year-old, like, who kind of hadn't really a clue, to be honest. Like, I like sport, but it's a different thing sitting down and all of a sudden having to write an article on it, knowing that people will read it the next day. Or there's people at home listening on the local radio and they're like, what is your one on about? She hasn't a clue. So I really struggled with that initially. Then I struggled with having to go and interview football managers after matches, because I was just mortified. I mean, I was apologizing for actually being there. And then, you know, you get used to that, I suppose, and that only comes with experience. Then when I went to Dublin, I was working at a local radio station. When I moved to Dublin and started working with News Talk, I went in, and the first day, you know, my boss said to me, can you go down to government buildings? And I looked at him, I was like, where's government buildings? Like, hadn't a clue, was like fresh in Dublin, like wandering around Mount Street going like, and he's like, you can't miss it. You just walk out the door. We were like, we were down on Lower Mount Street. So you literally walk out the door, go right, and like, you can't miss government buildings. Like, God, I'm such a thick. Like, I was just apologizing for myself all the time. But like, and there was no other way. I just had to go through all of that. Like, you have to, you know, you have to feel the fear. But I suppose there was so many nice people along the way. Like, you could just say to them, like, I haven't a clue what's going on here, you know, and people, everyone's been there. But I think, you know, I really had to battle with myself. When I first started reporting, I used to make my boyfriend used to drive me around to matches. I used to make him get out of the car when I recorded my report, because I was too embarrassed to let him hear me. So I've come a long way, but you know, that's I had to struggle with myself a lot. I was confident to a point, but I really had to, you know, work on the rest of it.
Yeah, that's really interesting and valuable to hear. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm wondering, Molly, if you have any similar.
Yeah, I think similar to Sinead, imposter syndrome sometimes when you're starting out is a big thing. So just realizing that you are there for a reason and that you've earned your place, like Mark was saying, that, you know, you deserve. I always say, like, when people would tell me, oh, you know, you're probably never going to be able to do that, or, you know, no one, you know, you're probably going to just end up doing, you know, working somewhere else because a career in the arts isn't viable. I always just thought, well, someone has to do it, so why can't that person be me? So I think imposter syndrome is a big thing that you have to get over initially, and you have to go forward with confidence. And like Sinead said, you have to feel the fear and do it anyway, and you have to just take that that leap, and that is the best. Like they always say, when you are outside your comfort zone, that's when you learn the most, and I think that's absolutely true. I think that I can't think of any major setbacks that I've had, but my job is essentially being a professional problem solver. So anything that has come my way that's maybe derailed me has just set me, I believe, on a different path towards the same goal that I wanted. So yeah, no major setbacks, but I think that the same as Sinead, building that confidence when you're starting out in your career is a big step.
Thank you. Yeah, like as we touched on earlier, like it is quite heartening to, you know, hear that, obviously not to hear that people you respect have, you know, dealt with that kind of imposter syndrome, but as, you know, as like a young person, like getting started in the arts, there is something that feels like kind of a relief about knowing that even the people who you really look up to, you know, sometimes feel the same way you do and have for many years, and that's kind of just something that, you know, you have to learn to deal with, but also that you can learn to deal with. So going back to kind of the, you know, the idea of like where you were when you started out, we have a question and then a slightly different variation on that question, so you can choose answer whichever one you choose to. But what is the thing that you wish that somebody had told you when you were first starting out? And because obviously in 2021 the world, you know, is perhaps a different place, what advice would you give to a different version of you who was getting started in 2021? So I don't know if yeah, I don't know if Ruth, do you have anything on that you?
I guess if I'm thinking of advice I'm telling people, do you know what, I loved what kind of Mark and Sinead kind of touched on there about self-belief, because it's such a huge thing. There's so many people out there that tell you you can't do something. There's very few people that will tell you that you can do something, and you have to be one of those people that says, no, I can definitely do this, I've got this, leave me alone, I'm grand, I'm going to do it. And that's very much my philosophy. Every time someone was just, you know, my career guidance teacher, the tutors who failed me, and then everybody else after that was just like, maybe this isn't the best thing for you. I was just like, I'm going to prove you wrong. So for me, it's like spite and stubbornness coming back on, I got this. So that's kind of what drives me. And I think that's one of the most important characteristics a person can have who is starting out in a kind of a non-traditional route and who will very much be working for themselves. But I always tell people that photography in particular, you only spend about 5 to 10% of your time with a camera in your hands. When you're starting out as a photographer, a lot more of your time will go into things like marketing and the business side of things, networking, social media, web design, all this stuff, you know, accountancy, stuff that you don't have the money to pay other people to do yet, so you have to learn. So there's a lot of self-learning involved in areas that aren't specifically related to your craft, and people don't realize that. And that's, I think, why people give up on this career quite early, because it is just extremely messy, and it's, you know, and it is, I'd like to say it's not a 7-day-a-week job, but it is when you work for yourself, and it is when you go through a recession and when you go through a pandemic, that you do have to step it up during those times and go, okay, for my business to survive. And when I talk about my business, I'm really just talking about me. It's like, for me to survive this, I do need to do 7 days a week, and I have to work all the hours, and I have to answer all the emails. So there is an awful lot of hard graft into it. And even though it looks cool, like my job, a lot of our jobs look really cool. We're just like on set sometimes, and we're hanging around with people who are way more awesome than we are, and we're like, this is cool. It's like, no, it's very, very hard. So I think that realization has to come to people quite early on when they're starting out, and they have to accept it and just get on with it, really. That's it.
Yeah, perfect. It is such a valuable thing to know that it is going to be difficult, and it's going to be terrible at times, but it does end up being worth it.
I think also it goes back to what everyone's saying really about to trust your instincts, your artistic instincts, I spent a lot of time when I was starting off just spending, way too long worrying about if I was making the right decision or not. And because when you're in the arts, there's lots of grey areas. It's there's no one there to tell you stop now. Or you got to do more. A lot of the time, I actually, if I look at what I did, I was getting so wound up for no reason. So yeah, it's just becoming time efficient, and it's partly to what Ruth was saying there about how your day is. I mean, like if I look at my diary now, it's a very small amount of time where I actually really sit down. Either put music on or turn music off. There's lots of little habits, little twitches you have before you start coming up with the idea. It's a tiny amount of the day is actually doing the actual, for me, the actual designing, big decision making, and the rest of the day, yeah, it's the boring stuff. But if you do learn how to almost like speed through a design thought, an artistic thought in your head, it comes from practice. It's like any sport or any exercise. The more you do it, you train your brain and you make artistic decisions quicker. It's a weird thing, but you actually you feed off your own experience from your other work. So gradually, but to start off with, it's very easy just to be swimming around and not knowing if you can stop now or if you need to take it further. But if you really believe in what you're doing, you can make a snap decision and it can be the right one, and that's exciting. That's really exciting.
Brilliant, thank you. So I guess does anybody else have any words of wisdom for either their young self or a bright-eyed young thing in the crowd who wants nothing more than to be the person that you've become, and what you might say to them? I go over to Molly.
I think there's two kind of things that I would have said to myself. I think that one was to not to worry about rushing anywhere or any of that, like fake it till you make it kind of stuff. Is just to like enjoy the process of kind of working your way up from the bottom and learning as much as possible. And that would be the second thing, would be to learn as much from all of the different people that you meet in these worlds. So I worked in theatre, in film, and in live events. And although my role in production has kind of been similar across those, the teams that I work with and the productions I work on are vastly different, and having a general knowledge of what everyone does on that team means that you are able to do your job way better. So learn as much as possible, talk to people, get a general idea of what their role is, and then you can understand what they do, and that means that you'll be essentially better at what you do, because if you have an understanding of the pressures of everyone else around you, then you're able to have a more effective time on set or during a production. So yeah, just to enjoy the process and don't rush and panic and think, how do I get right to the top? Just like what Ruth was saying at the very beginning, is that you have goals and lists, and you see where you want to be, and you kind of think of all of the steps that you need to take to get there, but enjoy each of those steps as you go along.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a thing I'm kind of starting to take from a lot of the insights we shared here tonight is the importance of learning and transferable skills, and how even if you're not going somewhere fast, or if you're in a different field that doesn't end up being where you end up going, like you said with Jamie's fluorescent lighting, or with Mark learning from being in a football team. It's all about that, like that knowledge is never wasted. It's everything you learn can be valuable to you in some way. And
we might go to Mark on that one if you have anything to add there.
Yeah, it's a tough question actually, because I think it's something that's constantly unfolding. Something that I've struggled with recently is kind of losing myself in the work, and I think when you choose a career like this that you kind of identify with, or that you love, and it's been a dream, or you've got this perceived like, this is my life now, like I'm in the arts, or I'm a theater director, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a photographer, I'm in production, like it's very easy to be consumed by the whole thing and kind of forget who you are almost, because you love it so much and you want to keep doing it and you want to keep growing. It becomes very difficult to set boundaries within it for yourself. And I suppose in the last year, like I've been building this kind of collective for the last 4 years and running a company, as well as trying to also grow myself as a human being and as an artist. But it's very easy to not set boundaries for yourself, to take time off and to allow the subconscious to get fed, and to go and see family and just do things for yourself that is outside of the work, because you get validation from the work, and it's money, and it's survival, and it's growth, and it's your expression of self, and all these things. And yeah, I think for me, if I was to give advice to people, it would be create balance. And I've kind of heard it come through everybody else. Create that sense of balance where you have on time and then you just have off time, and have relationships outside of your field that aren't mixed. Like it's great I had this kind of idealistic view of like, I just want to live. I just want to wake up in the morning and just live. I don't want it to be a separation between work and life. I just want it to all be one thing. And that's great. And I've lived that. But I've also realized through doing that you need separation. You need to have time for just yourself and friends who aren't in any way connected to what you do, to just have that release. And I suppose creating that sense of balance outside of it. Like even now I'll work for 5 months, sometimes without taking a day off, and then I'll take a whole month off. And it's not always the best way to go. I'm trying to work at that, but it's a process of just being kinder to yourself and taking time off. Because when you do, it really nurtures the work. Like your work gets better when you're rested, and when you're showing up to do things, and whatever, the dopamine, the serotonin isn't firing in the same way. You're like, I really feel like I should be enjoying this more than I am. That's always an indication that maybe you just need to take some time off to really appreciate what you have and come back fresh with new ideas that weren't there before, and read a book that you didn't think you'd have time to read, or go on a holiday that you wouldn't expect, or go and experience something different. So I think just kind of living with that balance, as much as it's difficult, because this kind of career will take over if you let it, because you love it and you're so wrapped up in it. But just having an awareness of creating balance and boundaries, I think is it's probably not the advice I even thought I would be given at this age or this stage of my life, but I'm glad I am, because I think it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in the world of Zoom, where you can't like shut the office door or like clock off at 6, or I know it mightn't be an office door in this case anyway, but where you're always contactable and always reachable, I think that's like such an important message.
Yeah, here's my co-founder, look, just leaving the studio now. With all the gear. Yeah. 10 to 8. Yeah. 10 to 8. He's been on set since 9 o'clock this morning, and he'll be on set at 9 a.m. So
yeah. Well, I had to pick up the fiance from work as well. So that's the main reason I'm here.
There's a bit of balance there, you see.
Absolutely. And I see we have 2 questions come in on the chat, so we might just answer those 2 so we don't run out of time. So we'll go to one person has asked, Sinead, did you find it hard moving up the ranks in the media industry? And are there any particular obstacles you found hard to overcome?
Did I find it hard moving up the ranks? So I started, as I said, in local radio. I spent about 3 or 4 years in local radio before I applied for a job in Newstalk, and I worked there for 5 years. When I was in Newstalk, I applied to RTE in, I think it was 2008, and I was put on a panel, which means when a vacancy arises, they'll offer you a job. But the recession happened, and I never got a call until randomly one day in 2011, I got a phone call to say, actually, we have a job for you now. And it was a maternity leave contract. And I was tossing and turning saying, God, is this, should I take the jump? And anyway, I did take the jump, and I was made permanent. So it's been hard work. There's been a lot of weekends. There's been a lot of, crappy night shifts. A lot of 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning starts, but that's what journalism is. It's not a 9 to 5 job. So I suppose that was the most challenging part. throughout all of my 20s, when my friends were all off having a great time, I was working weekends, or I had to be in at 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning or in at 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning. But I think when you really love something, you know, you're just willing to make that sacrifice. And the reality of it is, it doesn't really change. Like, my hours are still crazy. I can still get a call at any point and have to go to work. So I signed up for that a long time ago. So I think that was the biggest obstacle and the challenge for me. But in terms of moving up, I was lucky. I was really lucky in that, you know, I applied for jobs and I got them. But I worked really, really hard. And I am, I suppose, where I am because, you know, I did that work.
Absolutely. And there's another question in the chat there. I don't know if you want to ask that one, Emily.
Yes, thank you. It's a question from Katie Clarkson to Molly. Have you been able to travel much with your role in production? Do you think it's important working in the arts in Ireland to be permanently based here, or is there merit in working abroad?
Yeah, so funny enough, I'm freshly back from New York, all of like 3 days. So I've just spent the last 2.5 years there. And so I worked there for a company, a big production company, who were able to offer me to some travel for different high profile jobs. So I was primarily based in Manhattan, but I got to work in different places and do all these crazy events. Like, I got to travel to Washington quite early on to go and do a private dinner for Bill and Hillary Clinton, which was one of my first gigs, which was kind of hilarious to be thrown in the deep end like that. But absolutely, I think that working abroad is definitely a perk that comes with production sometimes. But I don't think it's always as glamorous as it seems. It's a lot of hard work, especially in my role as like a production coordinator, production manager. The logistics involved with sending a team or a group of people to a different spot is always a big challenge. But I think that I'm very excited to be back in Dublin now and to be back in the art scene in Dublin. And I've just started working with a new production company here. So I think that if you're ever given the opportunity to travel, I think that absolutely, it's always what we were saying. I mean, learn as much as possible and as much as you can. And I think that there's nowhere as good for a baptism of fire than New York City. I think that like doing anything in New York City is 20 times harder than doing it anywhere else in the world. So I think that if you ever have the opportunity to go and learn somewhere else and see the different art scenes and cultures, and how people do things maybe more efficiently or less efficiently, I think that it's always, again, it's just gaining knowledge. So I think that it's not as important to be permanently based here. I think that if, again, you have a dream or an aspiration to work between two cities, I think that is 2 or 3 cities. I think that that's an amazing opportunity that you should always take. But I think that the art scene in Dublin and in Ireland especially, and as showcased by this festival that you've organised, I think that we have the talents and we have the resources here, and we absolutely have the skill. So I think that we have a really exciting arts and culture scene here. So I think that being permanently based in Ireland is just as exciting as being based anywhere else in the world.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I suppose as a kind of a last word, we might just go around and ask you all, thank you so much for sharing all of your stories and all of your insights. We might just ask, what excites you most, or what's the thing that keeps you coming back to what you do?
For me, been working in theatre, it's that liveness of it. I realized that I just love live theatre. I love going to live events. I miss them incredibly at the moment, and we're all desperate to get back into it again. But there's some sort of an electricity that goes around an audience, whether it's a gig or if it's a theatre show or whatever. There's an incredible feeling of community of other people that I absolutely love about working in theatre, and you get an immediate reaction as well. In a right or wrong way, but you get an immediate reaction to what you're doing, which I get a huge buzz out of. Just realizing the power of anything visual, sound, light, words, when all that comes together, it sort of transports people. So it's got a huge importance for me. So yeah, and wherever I do shows, you always feel that you know, you become part of that, and the people around you, places you go to, places you travel to, you meet new audiences. It's just yeah, very privileged.
I guess I'll go. I actually tried to step away from live music photography a few times. Even though I dedicated my entire career to it, I felt like after 13, 14 years of shooting Electric Picnic, I was like, okay, job done. I need to go and do something else. And I wanted to kind of more move into the fine art realm. So after every festival season, I'd like run out of the production office going, bye guys, it was lovely working with you. Thanks so much. I'll never see you again. And then, you know, next year the cycle will continue. I'd get a call from like a bigger festival or whatever, and they'd be just like, hey, or a tour. And it's like the lure of live music for me. Like I've based my life around music, even though I can't sing a note or play anything, play any instrument. I just absolutely adore it. There's something so special about that atmosphere of a crowd, of a whole stage show, of music, and it's everything that I love in life comes around music, and that'll always get me back. And photography just happens to be the tool that I use to connect myself to music. I'll always be a photographer in one way or another. So when COVID shut our industry down, as a, you know, our music industry down, I was still going to create and I was still going to take photographs. They were just very, very different photographs. So they're two things that run in tandem together, and hopefully by the end of this year, music will be back again and we'll all be back to work and stuff. But I've tried to leave it, but they just keep bringing me back in.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I'm conscious of time, but we'll go around on everyone else as well, insofar as we can. Will we go to Mark next?
Growth and potential. I think I keep changing as a person constantly. Like I'm probably a very different person even this year to who I was last year. And I think it's often very difficult, but the fact that I'm noticing myself changing and I'm liking the person more year on year who I'm discovering coming out through the work, no matter how difficult it is, I think that coupled with not knowing what's going to happen next, like really not knowing what project can come in or like what I'm going to be drawn to or inspired by. I think this industry is full of surprises and you just never know what's coming around the corner, whether that's a pandemic and an opportunity to document a different kind of side of life, or whether that's a story that or a dream that you have that you're like, I need to write this down and turn it into a film. You know, you just don't know when inspiration will take you or who's going to come knocking on your door to make a film. So yeah, I think both of those things, just personal growth through this medium and the potential of who knows what can happen next.
Absolutely. And Sinead?
I love telling stories. I just love meeting people. I love being part sometimes, or watching on very close to history, whether that's, you know, Britain's Queen Elizabeth arriving in Ireland and covering her visit, or Barack Obama. And then sometimes it's, you know, the most ordinary of people. A few weeks ago, I met a man, an 82-year-old man who'd spent 4 months on a ventilator having had COVID. I interviewed him when he got home, and, you know, sometimes the most ordinary people have had the most extraordinary experiences, and, you know, to be able to capture that in some way. And then, you know, I get great freedom in that. I am the reporter, but we also edit all our own material. So you come back and you put it all together. So I think that's definitely the buzz that keeps me going. It's been able to tell those stories and been able to share the stories with people across the country.
Yeah, absolutely. That's gorgeous. I'm gonna go to Molly for our last word.
Yeah, for me and for my job, I think it's the intersection between creativity and practicality and being able to marry the both of them. So working in a collaborative way with a bunch of creatives, but actually bring that dream that they bring to you to life. And then, as Jamie was saying, getting that gratification of seeing something that you have had a hand in creating come to life and people enjoying it is really, really special. And just the fact that no 2 days are the same, and everything is so exciting and changeable, and you have to be so ready to adapt to anything. I think that's really exciting and could never possibly be bored doing a job like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much to our 5 fantastic panelists for being so forthcoming with all of your stories and experiences and so willing to share. And I know I got a lot out of it. I'm sure all of our attendees got so much out of it. And yeah, on behalf of Lasta, our 3 venues and ourselves, just thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you to everyone for taking the time to be here as well. I don't know, Emily, if you have anything to add to that.
You covered it all again, darn it. Yes, no, I want to extend again massive thank you to all of our panelists for being so generous with your insights. I know as soon as the recording is ready, I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch this all again so I can properly absorb everything you've said. But yes, thank you. And thank you as well to all of our attendees. We really hope that you got so much valuable insight out of this.
And thank you for being part of our Lasta programme. Obviously, Lasta will run until the 20th, so this Sunday. There's loads of events in the 8 venues, so if anyone wants to go and check those out, there's more than enough to keep you occupied till the end of the weekend. And yeah, thank you for all of our venues for supporting us. And for anyone who missed the start of this panel discussion, we've recorded it, so we'll be putting it back up on the venue socials after this event. But yeah, I've nothing left anyway to say. I don't know if anyone else has, but a big thank you.
A big thank you to you guys for organising this and inviting us along. So thanks a million for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, of course, we couldn't have done it without as well the support of our venues, the Town Hall Theatre and Backstage, also Douglas Redden from Glore, who also played a big part in getting this venue together, as well as the entire Lasta and Brightening Air programs. No, it's because of them we get to do stuff like this, and we get to share stuff like this. So
yeah, absolutely,
we're very thankful.
Maisie and Fionn Foley, who've helped us
as well. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, we won't keep you any longer, folks. So thank you so much. Enjoy your evenings, and yeah, thanks a million.
Fair play to you. Well done.
Thanks a million, guys.
See you later.
Thanks so much.